Hello everyone, I'm Kenshin. Welcome to Talking History. Before we begin, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Also, don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Thank you. Today, I'm going to share with you a historical discussion. The top 10 shortest reigning monarchs in world history. We can all understand that, besides merely seeking fame, all monarchs hope for longer reigns. But can everything go as planned? Throughout recorded history, there have been countless monarchs, most of whom you've probably never heard of because their reigns were so short. Why then do they remain in history books? Not long ago, we talked about the top 10 longest reigning monarchs. Today, let's take a look at the 10 forgotten short reigning monarchs in history. 10th place, Queen Jane Grey of England, 13 days. Jane Grey was the great-niece of King Edward VI of England and was even once considered his prospective fiancée. In 1553, fearing that his half-sisters Mary or Elizabeth, who were Catholics, would ascend the throne upon his death, Edward VI issued a will naming Jane Grey as his successor, making her the first queen in English history. However, some argue that her reign lasted only 9 days and is not formally recognized as that of a Queen of England. On July 7, 1553, Jane Grey was proclaimed queen, but at the same time, Princess Mary had the support of her followers and raised an army to seize power. On July 19, the Privy Council declared Mary as queen and swiftly arrested Jane Grey and her supporters. On February 12 of the following year, Jane Grey was secretly executed in the Tower of London at the age of 16. However, there is controversy over her accession date. Some argue that she became queen on July 6, 1553, the day Edward VI died. According to this view, she is known as the 13-day queen. But according to the official website of the British royal family, she became queen on July 10, the day her accession was announced. According to this view, she was a 9-day queen, and was deposed on July 19. 9th place, Emir Saba of Kuwait, 10 days. Saba was the eldest son of Abdullah III, the 11th Emir, or King, of Kuwait, and also the cousin of Jabir, the 13th Emir. In 1978, he was appointed Crown Prince and served as Prime Minister from 1978 to 2003. After the Gulf War, he also served as the Commander-in-Chief of the military. On January 15, 2006, after Jabir's death, Saba succeeded to the throne. Although Saba ascended to the throne, he was unable to effectively carry out his duties as head of state due to suffering from colon cancer. Taking advantage of this situation, his half-brother and Prime Minister, Saba, forced him to abdicate through a cabinet meeting. On January 24, Saba was forced to abdicate and died 2 years later. 8th place, King John I of France, less than 5 days. After the death of Louis X of the Capetian dynasty of France, his posthumous son John was declared king immediately after birth and became known as John I. John I was born on November 15, 1316, but survived for less than 5 days, dying on November 19 of the same month, having been in power for less than 5 days. Despite the brevity of his reign, John I is still considered a legitimate king of France. 7th place, Emperor Gongzong of the Nguyen dynasty in Vietnam, 3 days. In 1883, upon the death of Emperor Dong Khan, his adopted son Nguyen Phuc Vinh San was proclaimed emperor as Gongzong. He was known as Emperor Yuda Huangdi in later generations due to his long residence in the Yude Hall of the imperial city. Emperor Gongzong ruled for only 3 days before being dethroned and killed by the regent Nguyen Van Tuing and the imperial clan, who then enthroned Nguyen Phuc Tuan, the half-brother of Emperor Dong Khan, as Emperor Khoi Hoa. 6th place, Emperor Zhongzong of the former La dynasty, La Long Dui, 3 days. La Long Dui, the third son of Emperor La Hone of the former La dynasty, was initially granted the title of the King of the South due to his favored status. He was designated as the Crown Prince in 1004 due to his popularity. Upon the death of Emperor La Hone in 1005, Crown Prince La Long Dui ascended the throne as Emperor Zhongzong. At this time, La Long Dui's second brother, the king of Dongcheng, Le Longxi, and his fifth brother, the king of Kaiming, Le Longting, rebelled against each other to compete for the throne. In the end, Le Longting emerged victorious. Emperor Zhongzong was killed after only 3 days on the throne, and Le Longting became the emperor, reigning for 4 years. In 1009, Le Longting died of illness, and the general Li Gongyuan seized the throne, leading to the downfall of the former Le dynasty. 5th place, King Dipendra of Nepal, less than 3 days. Dipendra was born in 1971 and was declared crown prince by his father, Birendra, the following year. Dipendra fell in love with an Indian woman named Devyani, but the king and queen refused to allow the marriage due to Devyani's nationality. Dipendra became extremely resentful and even harbored thoughts of killing his parents. On June 1, 2001, Dipendra got into another argument with his parents over the issue of choosing a bride in the palace and, in a fit of rage, used a small automatic weapon to shoot his parents and over a dozen other members of the royal family before attempting suicide. He was proclaimed king while on his hospital bed. In the early hours of June 4, Dipendra died from his injuries, and his uncle Gyanendra ascended to the throne. 4th place, Empress Yuan of the Northern Wei dynasty, about 1 day. After a disagreement between Emperor Xiaoming of the Northern Wei dynasty and his mother, Empress Dowager Hu, for power, Empress Dowager Hu had Emperor Xiaoming poisoned. In 528 AD, after Empress Dowager Hu killed her own son, she then proclaimed Empress Yuan, Xiaoming's newborn daughter, as the emperor and falsely claimed her to be a boy. However, after just about a day, Empress Dowager Hu felt that the lie was too much to uphold and then proclaimed the infant son of Prince Baohui of Lintao, Yuan Zhaohui, as the emperor. Empress Yuan reigned for only 1 day and then disappeared from historical records. 3rd place, King Louis of France, 16 hours. In 1848, France witnessed the February Revolution, during which the Orleans dynasty, also known as the July monarchy, King Louis Philippe was forced to abdicate on February 24, and his 9-year-old grandson, Louis, Count of Paris, was proclaimed the new king by the National Assembly in hopes that he would continue the dynasty's legacy. However, the revolutionary populace could not accept this arrangement. Louis was forced to abdicate the same day, formally ending the dynasty's rule. Louis later went into exile in England and then volunteered as a soldier in the American Civil War. After the suppression of the Paris Commune, he attempted to return to France to seek restoration but failed. In 1886, Louis was expelled from France and eventually died in exile in England. 2nd place, Emperor Changlin of the Jin dynasty, Yelu Changlin, less than 2 hours. Although Emperor Aizong of the Jin dynasty was the de facto emperor of a defunct state, he did not want to bear this hat himself. So, before the only remaining stronghold of Kaizhou was captured, he handed over the throne to the imperial general Yelu Changlin and then committed suicide to die for his country. On February 9, 1234, Yelu Changlin was appointed as the emperor of the fallen Jin dynasty. However, he only held the title of emperor for less than an hour, less than 2 hours, as the Mongol Song coalition army had already captured the city of Kaizhou, and Yelu Changlin led his troops to confront them, eventually dying in the chaos of battle. 1st place, King Louis XIX of France, 20 minutes. In 1830, France experienced the July Revolution, during which King Charles X was forced to abdicate, and the French Parliament elected Charles X's distant cousin, Louis Philippe, as king on July 31. To legalize Louis Philippe's accession, the French Parliament first required Charles X to sign a document abdicating in favor of his grandson, Prince Louis, and then required Louis to sign a document renouncing the throne. These two documents were signed 20 minutes apart. Therefore, Louis was the King of France for those 20 minutes, formerly known as Louis XIX. Interestingly, after signing the documents, Louis pleaded with the French Parliament to allow him to rule the country for at least 1 hour, but this request was mercilessly rejected. Louis's ultimate fate was exile to Italy, where he died as a foreigner without the opportunity for burial in his homeland.